Hello, my dear friends, my lovely audience, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show, Jack Chow on East West with G&E TV. 2 weeks ago in Las Vegas, shooting happened. That, of course, is the old news. What remains new, what remains still hot, is the consideration, is the talk afterwards. Not only the aftermath that still remains shocking, but also the fact that people are once again thinking about lots of issues, even the old issues of gun control. Should we control guns? Should we set more restrictions to the guns? And even to the shooting itself, on the scene, there are many points with questions that needs to be answered. And also, at the shooting scene, if something unfortunately happens to you of that nature, or of that attitude, or altitude, what should we do to keep ourselves safe in order to survive, so on and so forth? Today, I have my good friend, Mr. Joe Gardner, visiting me. And he has lots of different positions, even including the president of the Meals on Wheels of the San Gabriel Valley. But on top of that, he is a retired police officer for Santa Monica PD, and he also holds a leading position in the Los Angeles County. What is that department?
The probation commission.
Probation department, right? Probation department. You're the chair or the vice chair?
I'm the chair.
You're the chair.
President of the commission.
President of the commission. Yeah, that's lots of hats. So important person. Obviously, he knows guns. Obviously, he knows bullets. Obviously, he knows the fact that the guns kill, right? So, my dear friend, Joe Gardner, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jack. It's always great to be here.
My lead line seems to be too long. Not only that, but kind of like a messy, because it's here, there, everywhere, right? So now, let's focus to the starting point. At the shooting scene, though, when the news, like I said, becomes old news already, people are asking, is that possible? You know, in casinos, there are millions of cameras around you.
Yeah.
If not zillions, right?
Yeah.
And hotel rooms too.
Right.
Guest rooms too. On the corridor, in the rooms, everywhere, you name it. Right? How come? How could a person single-handedly move around 34 of those heavy-duty weapons into a room?
Yeah, it's very. It makes you really wonder if he didn't have help in what transpired before the shooting. Mm-hmm. And you're right. There was a lot of ammunition, hundreds of rounds of ammunition. Mm-hmm. Many rifles. I believe he had some pistols as well.
Yeah.
And you wonder, how could he get all of that stuff into the room?
You know guns. You know the ones, and you know guns. You know weapons, right?
Right.
So put all the 34 so far described, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think that calls for a truckload?
Well, you would think.
Or pickup.
Yeah, at least. I mean, they'd have to come in duffel bags or something, that would be able to accommodate those. Mm-hmm. And, there's mixed stories as to whether there were 34 or actually 17. Maybe the total would have been the others that were found in his Mesquite home a few miles away. Mm-hmm. So, but in either case, it's a lot of firepower to take to a room.
There's a lot of firepower, and by weight on the shoulder, for example, the AK-47, how many pieces can you carry?
That's heavy.
That's heavy, right?
Right.
2, 3, 4, that's it.
Ammunition is very
and
heavy.
plus ammos. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I believe there must be some kind of inside work involved. Do you think so, or do you
There is some speculation that he would have had to have some help. Originally, they thought maybe his girlfriend who went to the Philippines a few days earlier, and later found out that she was not involved, but thought maybe that she was helping him in some way. There is speculation, and it's not confirmed, but that perhaps the security guard that was shot initially might have been a person of interest, and that's not clear yet.
Okay. So, and next question is that how many days has he rented the room?
Yeah,
and it's
like
not a
4
one-day
days.
job. It's not a one-day job.
He was there for several days, right? 4 days.
For several days.
Yeah,
all right.
I think 4 days is
He can move around with different batches, right?
Yeah.
Like one at a time.
Right.
That probably makes little sense. However, how can he get away from the cameras?
Right. Good point. And I'm sure that they're still going through all of that video that might have been in the hotel's camera system. So I think it's going to take some time to figure that out.
There is a conspiracy saying, I don't know if this people would buy or would just say it randomly or just a funny thinking.
Yeah.
Somebody had this conspiracy story saying that it could be some kind of ISIS that did the job and got this very guy, scapegoat, right, in the room, put him in the room and then shot him.
Well, it's interesting to note that ISIS.
Does it sound interesting to you?
No, ISIS took responsibility for that action.
Oh.
The problem with that is they take responsibility for any significant incident like that.
They want to claim the
throughout
credit.
the world.
Yeah.
So, but and people, I guess, could speculate all day long about that. It's just going to be tough to figure out. There's this man that has no ties. Wasn't affiliated with any groups other
no
than
affiliation at all.
Yeah,
no previous record at all.
right.
And known as a very humble man.
Right.
All of a sudden kills like crazy.
Yeah.
Well, probably the story has some kind of a foundation.
Yeah.
I mean,
It makes you think. It
makes you think, right?
And I hope that the law enforcement officials really scratch all the surfaces, look at everything and really come up with an answer.
Do you think that hotels, casinos could be responsible or could be held responsible? Because it is them supposed to be in charge of the hotel security.
I think they're going to rethink their liability, as incidents like these occur, especially Mandalay Bay is going to be really thinking about maybe toughening up its security. There are already lawsuits that have been initiated by family members of those victims at the concert. So you better believe that things are going to change. I don't know if the hotel is totally responsible for that, but of course it's going to take the courts to figure that out.
At least one thing for sure, that their camera system,
Right.
their security or sensor system failed.
Right.
That's for sure. That's quite obvious. And also, the organizer for the concert, I know that I've been organizing lots of concerts myself, right? Okay. And every time I go buy insurance myself, right? For a little gathering, I have to do like 3 times of $1 million in 3 ways to protect the event.
Yeah,
Right.
It's substantial, yeah.
This is very, very substantial, very substantial. Because I'm the one going through with it, so I know the paperwork, right?
Yeah.
It's not only paperwork. Actually, you do pay to get the insurance.
Sure,
Right.
of
Now,
course, yeah.
for a concert, that kind of altitude, that kind of a size, yeah.
22,000 people there.
Yeah, 23,000, you're talking about lots of people.
Yes.
Should they or could they be, the organizers, be held responsible, please?
Yeah, I would
Hopefully
think
they're
so,
insured.
especially if there were issues of people unable to get out because of gates and things that were closed. It's going to be hard to say. I mean, that as I was telling you before we started, I did some show prep, and that is like a big, huge asphalt-covered parking lot. And there was no cover. I mean, there are little small buildings, probably small restrooms or whatever, but if you look at an aerial picture of that, there's nothing out there to hide under. So,
but there's a lot of strange things, strange scenario, including the fact that lots of the runaway gate were closed, were sealed.
Yeah.
I was at, like I said, during my experiences when doing a concert, doing a get-together event, though, you want to remain as open as possible.
Right.
In case something happens, people need to run.
Yeah, so
you don't want to seal it like a drum.
Right.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah, you have to allow people to exit in an emergency.
On the contrary, we want to keep as many open as possible.
Right.
For example, right now we're planning. It is almost every year, like this year, at this time now, we're planning the New Year, the Chinese Lunar New Year event. For that Lunar New Year event, we're meeting the city clerks these days, and one of the major issue is that to draw a map, to lay out all the access, the open whatever, the driveway, the barrier, the blockage, so on and so forth, like that. So for an event like that size with 23,000 people, and you found out those gates are sealed, that's really something that's hard to explain. Do you think so?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's hard to say if that's truly the case. I did hear some things about that. The gates have, some of the people that were trying to flee were not able to get out quick enough.
Lots of tweeters said it themselves.
Right.
And they said on their Facebook, they say, well, they bumped into close the gates.
Yes. And there's no way, you're trapped. I mean, you're just trapped. There's no way to get out.
Right. All right, my dear friends, today in the wake of the Las Vegas shooting, we want to find out issues that needs to be considered. The way the news has been an old news already, that's a fact. What remains still new is still the checking points that we want to check it, not only for the purpose of checking, but also for the fact that we want to learn from the checking points. So if something of that altitude happens, could be you, could be me, could be us, right? What to do? So with me today, my good friend Joe Gardner, former Santa Monica PD officer for 28 years, glorious years, and also the probation chairman. The
commission.
Los Angeles County Probation Committee and President, Mr. Joe Gardner, answering the questions. So stay with us, please. Hello, my dear friends, my lovely audiences. Welcome back to the show. As a matter of fact, the discussion about the Las Vegas shooting is not but the shooting itself, a news layer. We're talking about the aftershock. In the wake of the Las Vegas shooting, we need to refresh our memories, refresh our own cognizance of how to do, what to do in a situation like that. With me today is my good friend, Mr. Joe Gardner, former Santa Monica PD officer. He is also the president of the Probation Committee of Los Angeles County. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, sir.
Good. Now, thank you. From the self-maintenance purpose, because at that time, you're not talking about law enforcement. They are too far away.
Yeah.
Right? You're not talking about any help, any aid that runs to you. Right. I would say during the very first few seconds, if not minutes, you are pretty much on yourself.
Yes, you are.
So lots of people argue that you should run. And they say, no, you're not running. You're supposed to lay down. All right. And they say, no. You're lying down there, but it's a moving target. It's hard to shoot.
Right.
All right, shoot at. You want to be a moving target. And then while the argument goes on and on, then some even recommended that you start rolling on the ground, or so on and so forth. Right. So as an officer, police officer, going through all kinds of that stuff, playing with all kinds of weapons, what would be, given the environment, given the certain time and the environment, what would be best for them? If the same thing happens to us, what will you do to keep alive, to stay alive?
It's not easy to say that. You must remain calm, because in a time of chaos like that, when you have 22,000 people all trying to flee, run, it could be
at the same time.
It could be a stampede. It could be very dangerous, and a lot of people just get hurt in the stampede
people
itself.
Could be stepped upon. Yeah.
But I mean, if you can remain calm, if you can walk quickly to the nearest exit away from the threat, you should always move away from gunfire, where you think it's coming from. That should be your protocol, and you should take care of those that are with you. There were children, there were some people that maybe had some disabilities, others that would have probably needed some assistance, and you should try and help them. If they're your family, move with them quickly to a safe exit.
Given that specific moment, though, you did not even know from which direction the fire comes.
Right.
Right? So, without knowing where the bullet comes, you don't even know where to run. You might run into the bullet.
Right. You cannot even imagine the chaos that would have taken place that day. The police that were arriving were receiving calls to go to other casinos, because people who were running away.
There was a little confusion of that.
Right, they were entering the casinos, different neighboring casinos with injuries, and so the police thought that maybe something was happening at that site rather than at the Mandalay Bay. So the sound reverberates off the walls of the buildings that are in that area, so it could really provide some confusion as to where the shots were coming from. Being that this was 32nd floor height, it was not really apparent as to where the gunfire was coming from.
Once again, given the specific moment whereby everybody was standing, is it wise to get down first?
I don't think so. Honestly, I think many people were hit just were laying flat on the ground. And normally you think, keep your head down.
They're stepped upon, stepped.
Right. You get stepped on, you end up being a target, a stationary target laying on the ground. So I think it's probably better to move at a safe pace out away from the location.
But problem is that you're running like aimlessly, without knowing where the bullets come from.
Yeah, it's very confusing. I mean, I couldn't imagine being in a situation like that. And it's unusual, and people will say I may be paranoid, but it's my officer training. But when I go to places like the mall, when I go to a concert, or when I go to a movie theater, I'm always assessing where the exits are when I walk in.
I see.
And I may take the unconventional route to get out of a situation.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. For example, you go to Kmart, right?
Right.
Or Walmart. The moment you walk in, you look around. Where am I supposed to run, right?
Right. You may look at the emergency exits that are alarmed, right? But in the emergency, you're going to run through those doors. Maybe not go to the front door, but you're going to go to the side door or the back door. Utility doorways for the malls, for example, have a lot of corridors that you can exit through, not the conventional public entrance, but the ones that are in between the stores.
I see.
So I always think about that. I tell my family to think about it. They probably think I'm a little silly, but, in light of some of the things that happen in public places, I like to be aware of taking the unconventional route out if I had to.
Okay, now, when our first option, if we had option, we do have option, is to run.
Right.
Do you think so?
Yes, to a degree, though. If you have a clear space to get out, I would say, yeah, you'd have to run. I mean, I'd probably run. In the heat of the moment, you would really be concerned about getting away from there fast.
Given the fact, from 32nd floor shooting down, he was shooting almost like a 45-degree angle, like this, right? And then, given the capacity of people, 23,000. It's a chunk of human bodies, next to each other, shoulder to shoulder. There, by no chance he will miss. He will shoot somebody anyway, with a random shooting, random firing, right?
Yeah.
And for that, unless you happen to be the very back row, probably the human body could be the shield to each other, to the people in front of them.
It's hard to say. I mean, gosh,
Am I right?
Yeah, and he was randomly shooting. I mean, he had if you imagine this table as being the concert venue and he's up elevated, there are people spread all across this parking lot.
So when I say this, I want to check with you. Could that mean it would be safer if you keep yourself in the middle of the crowd?
Well, I don't know. I don't think so. I would probably want to move to the edges, to the exit areas, or to find some kind of cover. There were some grandstands there set up on each side, and I would maybe try and get underneath those if I could. I would try to find something to get behind or something to get under. And unfortunately, in this scenario, there wasn't really much of that.
I'm thinking about, given the density of the human bodies altogether, right?
Yeah.
And probably in the middle would be a safer place,
in this
spot.
Well, perhaps, but in
one way or the other, huh?
Yeah. In the fleeting seconds of an incident like that, people are just going to run, and you have to hope that you're not going to get knocked down.
Even running, you're the last one if you're in the center. Right. You're the there, and it better be close to the outside. And closer to the excess.
Right.
In other words, mostly, about 90-95%, you're taking a chance.
You are. It's a flip of a coin, unfortunately.
It is like that.
And there were some times where the shooting had stopped, and that could only be presumed that he was reloading. The shooting was redirected to officers that were coming in their police cars. I guess he was targeting because it was dark and you could see the police cars with their lights on. And so he focused his attention on the arriving police cars. And so that gave some people some time to move away from there. So, it's a sad thing to hear that 527 people were shot at that event. And I'm surprised.
Suppose if at that very moment somebody has a weapon, like say another AK-47, and found out from which window the shooting starts. I mean, the guy is shooting out. Would it be a wise tactic to shoot back?
That's hard to say because in an officer's mind, you probably wouldn't want to shoot because you have hotel rooms, right? You have other people there. Your chances are people are going to get hit.
I see.
If you really had a great certainty that you could see where the target is, and that was the problem. They didn't know for many, many minutes where the gunfire was coming from. But if you shoot back, there's always going to be a high likeliness that you're going to hit somebody on the adjoining floors, up or below or side.
You're right. And also, even in the room itself, you're not sure if there's anybody else.
Right.
But you might get somebody else killed in that very room.
Yeah.
So
it's a real difficult problem.
To shoot back is not a wise tactic.
Yeah, for law enforcement, it's a nightmare. It's a tactical nightmare.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's something that you can't do it otherwise. I mean, everywhere, anyway.
Right.
But looking at the record, the response was fast enough.
Sure it was, yeah.
Within 10 minutes, they get there already.
And they had already, within minutes before that, they had already assembled some officers to go into the hotel and began the process of finding out where the shooting was taking place. So those brave officers, patrol officers, they got together,
Yeah,
banded together.
yeah.
That was before the SWAT team arrived, which is what you're talking about.
He learned that the shooting is above me. The 30, room whatever 31.
Right.
And 32 is above him.
Right. So I'm sure they kind of had an idea. They were heading up into the area where the shooting was taking place, the floor that it was taking place. I mean, the Las Vegas Metro Police did one heck of a job, and it was a terrible situation to be in, but they did what they could.
They did what they could, humanly possible.
Right.
And that was I wouldn't think anybody could do faster than 10 minutes, because you have, number one, to know what's happening.
Right.
And number two, where the shooting starts, right?
Yeah.
And how to get there.
Yeah,
and
some of the things they talked about is the sound reverberating off of the different buildings and structures, and when that happens, you're not clear on where, you have echoes and things coming off of different parts of the, and it is really disorienting. So
I want to learn a little bit about the operation, because this is very referential to my audiences. They will know, right? Okay, now, there are two concepts. One, talking about here's dispatch center. When the dispatch center receive calls, say, hey, I need officers, and then I send 5 officers over there, right? And then the other way of thinking the picture is that, and the police presences are all scattered around. At any spot, at any given point, there might be someone somehow available.
Right.
Right. And the second tactic would be say, hey, who is nearby Mandalay Bay, something like that. Right. So I'm go check, something like that. Right. Is that could that more likely be the former or the latter?
In what way? I'm not catching the officers, the initial officers that responded.
The initial, yeah.
Yes, I mean, you have to know those officers who were trying to coordinate a safe approach so that they wouldn't become targets themselves. Unfortunately, some of them did. When they arrived, they were being shot at. And they weren't even out of their police cars yet, and their cars were being targeted. You can bet that every available officer in that area dropped what he was doing and responded to that call. So you could almost assume there were many, many dozens of police officers arriving in those first few minutes.
The ones that happen to be nearby, though, are the ones, the first responders.
Right, absolutely.
Very good. Yeah. That makes us feel better, because we have presence everywhere, scattered around anyway, without an incident. Right. When an incident does happen, somebody gets first-handed. Right. Okay. My dear friends, today with my good friend Joe Gardner, we're learning about the system, how it works. I want to find out that if there are loopholes there. And we'll find out lots of answers to lots of questions. That's in the week we think of. Let's take a very short moment now. When we come back, we'll look at the other side of the coin, see how we want to control our guns. Hello, dear friends, my lovely audiences, ladies and gentlemen, my dear fellow Americans. Welcome back to the discussion in the week of Las Vegas shooting. That's the title of today's show. I mean, it was exactly too much of a wake-up call. And we knew something is happening. We never knew that it's that close. And that happened in Mandalay Bay, one of my favorite casinos. And by the way, I lost a lot of money there. Nobody would it. Nobody did it, right?
Your meals are comped now, right? Because sure. they let you in all the time, right?
Yeah. Anyway, with my friend Mr. Joe Gardner, we're trying to learn from the past incident to see. When something happens, what do we want to do in order to keep ourselves alive? Right now, automatically, once again, we're picking up the gun control issue, right? Suppose a guy, the very guy, suppose if he is the lone wolf, the only operator, right? For him to have that many guns, and each of them is clear, you're really talking about a very loose system. Am I right?
Well, you don't know. I mean, there are a lot of gun enthusiasts. I know many friends that have many guns, and they use them for sporting or for hunting or for self-protection. And they're people that I could count on to protect me if I were with them and something were to happen. There are just it's something that I think the Second Amendment allows people to own guns. I think some of the like the bump stock that was used that we discussed earlier, that in essence I think should be banned. It really does not provide any kind of, if you want to waste a lot of bullets and have a lot of fun at a target range, maybe that's for you, but it's not practical for any other purpose. So we hear a lot about the bump stock new regulations that may come out, and I think it's appropriate. Getting it in the wrong hands. In this case, this bump stock got into the wrong hands. It created a terrible situation.
The consequences are terrible, right? Consequences are so terrible that we even 2 weeks after are still thinking about it. I believe this, especially to those who have lost their loved ones, could be a lifetime. The scar is always there, right? It's something. Now, I have a little confusion here. Every time when you talk about the gun control subject or the issue, people kind of give you a rebound, talking about Amendment number 2.
Right.
All right. As a matter of fact, they are not interrelated, because when people are talking about gun control, they are not talking about the banning of the guns, banning of gun power, right? You still have your right under Constitution to own a gun, yet we want to add a little control measure on top of it. So people being allergic about it.
Yeah, there's advocates on both sides who will give you differing opinions as to why we should or should not do that. I always am a constitutionalist. I rely on the Second Amendment, and I have guns myself. And part of the key thing is I want to make sure that I'm responsible with the care and use of those weapons, and I assume that everyone should go through a class or training to make sure that they do the same thing. And if you hear something, say something. If you see somebody who maybe owns guns, who is displaying some behaviors that are concerning, then you should tell somebody about that.
I believe my audience will agree that here and there we put some controls, put some restrictions, some little tighter restrictions to a certain type of guns or whatsoever, or to environments, or to even to trainings that are quite unnecessary, right? Okay, now, as a police officer who have been gone through all these many years learning about those details, what do you think that in terms of owning guns are still those areas that remains to be fixed? In other words, without having to touch the gun right? For example, at a purchasing point, what do you want to do? At shooting range, what do you want to do? Stuff like that. Or back home, the storage, what do you want to do? You want to see those areas whereby little management could kick in.
Well, some of those safeguards are already there. I mean, when you go and purchase a gun, if you purchase it within a a store that's licensed by the government, you know, you have to pass a background check, and they have to certify that you're okay.
The owner itself.
Right, the owner itself. I think coupled with that, you should be able to receive some mandatory training, you know, that you know how to use and care for the weapon, and the proper usage of the weapon. So I think those kinds of things could be done right at the point of purchase. When you purchase that weapon, you should be prepared to go through some training.
The right now prevailing is that you fill out a form, right? Like a test paper. If you answer the questions right, you pass. Am I right?
Right.
It's only written test.
Right. You know, that's not a bad idea. I think the key thing is to be able to go across all the databases, the government databases, whether it's state, local, federal databases, and figure out if somebody shouldn't have a weapon. You'd be able to identify those pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I understand that to some extent that's taking place, but in some respects, you know, issues where someone was recently arrested, that I don't know if they catch all those all the time. Maybe for a serious crime where a gun was involved, you know, how soon does it get into the system? How soon can you find that out once somebody submits their name to be evaluated?
All right. And is it possible we make the law to require a person before purchasing, he has to present a paper that certifies certain hours he or she had gone through?
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea. You know,
right.
Safeguarding the weapon at home, you know, going to the target range, learning where not to point your weapon.
My actual, for example, shooting skill, my actual gun maintenance skill, or how much do I know in this whole area, thing like that.
Right.
And then, at the time of purchasing, do you think it's a physical test, that a physical test is necessary? You go to DMV, right? You answer questions, the quiz on paper, and you pass, and they give you a permit to learn, and you're on the roll, you're behind the wheel. And then you have to show them, the testers, that you drive safely, you drive okay. So actually, you drive in front of a tester. So can we, or do we think, or do you think that if I'm asking the law to do so at the purchasing point would be too much?
No, I don't think so. Honestly, I think it's a good thing to do, because you create more responsible citizens who will be more conscious of the proper way to own and maintain and use handguns or rifles. You know, you said the DMV, right? They have driving schools.
Yeah, of course.
You have to, and you take a certificate from the driving school saying that you did X
whoever
amount.
You learn from. Maybe driving school from your friend.
Not much different.
No much difference. Yet you have to show me your driving skills.
Right, absolutely.
Right? So if they set up rules or laws at purchasing point, okay, here's the gun, here's your paper, go shoot.
Right.
And the instructor will watch about you, how you operate, how you whatsoever, and give you a pass or not.
Right, exactly. I think it's reasonable. It's reasonable to do that.
So.
And those are skills that you will take to others that you may, you know, like your family.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Teach them the right way.
And the skills, I mean, those skills protect yourself and protect your family.
Right.
Am I right?
I think so.
Okay, very good. And my dear friends, today with my friend Joe Gardner, we're really touching base in the week of Las Vegas shooting. It's a devastating incident. Lots of people died, lots of people injured. But if we let it go without having to learn anything from it, we just wasted those who died, wasted their lives. Yet we probably want to make it at work. The way to make it at work is that we learn from it and see what we want to do. And we check it about on the spot what we want to do, to run, to hide, so whatsoever. And then we're checking about what is necessary for gun control and how much we want to do it. Let's take a very short moment now. When we come back, we'll keep looking at that direction, please. Hello, dear friends, lovely audience, and welcome back to the show, my dear fellow Americans. A gun kills, right? And a long time ago, I interviewed a police officer friend in talking about the comparison between drugs and the gun control. And he said the following. Even if there is a drug problem everywhere around me, I'm not endangering myself because I never touch it, right? And the gun situation is that even if I decide I will never touch it, I still might be hit by a straight bullet. Yeah. Am I right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So what he says is a logic thinking that you're talking about something that you could be a target, you could be a victim at any given moment. Even you're a kid, even you're a kid. So, my next group of questions is to you, are or would be in the area. How would you want to protect your family members, including your kids, especially when you have your situation when you have grandkids, to stop them or prevent them from getting to your guns or whatsoever, so that hurt themselves, hurt the family members, and create tragedy, please.
Right. I mean, you have to always be mindful that you have to protect others around you, whether it's your family, friends, neighbors, and you have to also recognize that it may be a few minutes before the police get there to help you. You have to rely on yourself.
Yeah, it's quite true.
You have to rely on your own skills, on your own mental capabilities to protect yourself and your family.
All right.
So I think always I think about that, and I always talk to my family about what they need to do to be safe. We tell them not to go too close to the edge of the cliff, right? But I tell them in other areas, always don't talk to strangers for my little ones, for my grandbabies, and also to be aware of your surroundings. Don't be buried in your cell phone or be listening with your headphones. If you're going to the mall, then enjoy the mall. Or if you're going to some public place, enjoy the things around you, but be focused. Think about those things, because things change pretty quickly, as we saw that happen in Las Vegas and many other shootings, unfortunately, that happen across the country and the world. So you have to be mindful that you're going to rely on yourself. And I teach my wife handgun safety. I, make sure they're secured. I taught my daughter the lessons of a proper handgun. Never point at anything you don't want to shoot. That kind of stuff. Okay. So those things are taught within my family, and I hope other families are doing the same thing if they have handguns.
Where do you keep your gun in the house?
I always have it in a locked container.
In a locked container.
That I have access.
Where is the container?
It's always in a safe place that only I or my wife knows about.
I see. Do you have a key to that?
No, it's actually a code. I put in a code.
I see, it's a code.
And some of those are nice. They have the nice fingerprint ones now.
I see. All right.
It all
very
depends.
Good, very good. And then I understand that you separate the bullet from it, right?
Yeah, you could.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how far are the bullets to the guns?
You try to keep them in separate containers, so that
separate containers,
but close by. Right.
For example, in my garage, I have one counter and I have two boxes. One holds my arm piece, the other holds my bullets.
Right.
Is that okay?
That's okay. But for me, if I have a lock container, I will keep that handgun loaded and secured in a locked container, because you don't want to fumble with that.
It is allowed, or it is okay.
Yes.
You keep a locked gun loaded.
It is okay, as long as it's
okay.
locked and secured.
All right, I
You don't
see.
want to do that when you're traveling, though.
Oh,
If you're in your car, you may, unless you have a concealed carry permit to allow
but
you.
if you put the gun in your trunk, you're driving out of state, right? So, for example, you're driving to Texas, to Vegas,
Right.
where guns are allowed, right? And while you are within territory of California, you have it concealed, you have it in the trunk. Only you want to use it once in Las Vegas.
Right.
So is that lawful?
Yeah, if you don't have a concealed carry permit, yeah, you should keep the ammunition separate. It's different if you have a permission to carry a weapon. You can carry a loaded weapon in a concealed fashion, and that's not a problem.
Yeah, lots of time I'm thinking about a situation if somebody breaks in, or if somebody is breaking in at your door, and then you start looking for your gun. Once you get your gun, you start looking for your
you don't
bullets.
want to be doing that.
You want to load them. You want to cock them. Well, you're wasting a bunch of time.
Right. Exactly.
By the time you're ready, he might be gone or he'll be in already.
Within your home, you could have your weapon loaded and in a secure fashion. It's no problem.
All right.
And you should have it that way as long as you're comfortable with
In
getting
your
it.
description, if I put my gun underneath my bed, nobody knows but me, for example, right? And then anytime I flip my arm and I can reach it, and there I have a locked container with my finger print there, I can open it up right away.
Right.
So gun is already loaded. If somebody breaks in my room whatsoever, may I start shooting?
Yes, of course
right
you
away?
can. Yes, of course you can. You should,
can.
but you should always be sure who you're shooting at. You know, you want to make sure it's not another family member or somebody else. But if you are sure that it's a stranger and an intruder,
all of a sudden your wife with a face mask, because she is doing her facial or something like
right.
that,
Right. So you know, but you have, if somebody's coming into your home, you can protect yourself.
How does that relate or conflict to the fact that your life is in imminent danger? Because the guy walks in, breaks in my house, he hasn't, risked my life yet. But the fact is that he invaded my room. So am I entitled to shoot?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, you don't know what he's going to do. Often burglars are very violent. They commit other crimes like rape, assaults,
All right.
when they break into homes. So, you need to protect yourself.
And in other situations, you want to make the gun as available to you as possible, as handy as possible.
Right, you do. But you just always have to make sure that a child is not going to find it and mess with it. It's got to be in a fashion that will be safe.
They're curious. They're looking around for it.
They do. Yeah, I have my little ones crawl under my bed all the time.
Yeah, sure. All right. Okay. So anyway, in the Vegas shooting, what else do you think that you want to tell my audiences as a lesson to learn?
I think you just need to be more conscious about your surroundings. When you go into a venue like that, look around, make an assessment, kind of figure out where you can exit if you had to exit. See where the security people are so that if you had to point out something of concern, you can go to them. And police officers are always at venues like that, especially large ones. Know where they're at. They're usually stationed in one place or another.
You want to form a habit.
Right.
Form a habit that every time you enter into a surrounding like that nature, you look around for access.
Right, exactly.
Okay,
I do that when I go to the mall. I know where the
to
security
a mall,
office is.
to a theater, to a concert or something like that?
Yeah, I know where the
Doing the
security
same way.
office is. Yeah, at the mall, I know where the security people have their stuff, and so I want to go in there and talk to them. If I have to, I can go there.
Okay.
And be unconventional. Don't be like the rest of the folks fleeing and stampeding to one exit that you probably came in through. Take the unconventional way out if you can do that.
Unconventional way. All right. Because that couldn't be the way, or less chances to be the way the attackers gets in.
Right, service corridor, gate not used by the public, you know, in a time of an emergency, you know, they're not going to stop you. They're going to let you out. So,
okay, when you realize that you have no way to run, so what do you do?
Find cover. Find a place to hide.
All right.
Get under something.
And then there's in the open, there's no place to cover.
Yeah.
No object, no nothing.
But there again, you got to move to some place that has cover.
All right.
Move to the periphery, to the edges, you know, to where the gates are, where some buildings might be, restrooms. Concealment is not always cover, you know. You want to make sure you can get behind something that may protect you.
Trees are no good, right? Trees can be shot at.
Sometimes, yeah, and they'll go through.
Yeah.
Sure. If you want to hide, that's maybe a good place. But if you really want to protect yourself from a bullet, then get behind a jersey wall, a barricade that's made of concrete or something.
So laying on the ground is not a good way.
I wouldn't advise it. No.
Yeah, you wouldn't do that.
I would move away. Yeah,
okay.
And if I didn't know where it was, I'd try to move from the open area to an area of cover. That's the key thing.
In between going to a concert hall or an open concert, which is safer? I would consider an open concert is safer than a theater concert.
It all depends. I mean, we could see that was basically a killing field. Unfortunately, you don't like to use that word, but the Las Vegas venue was...
The one was exactly like that.
It was a wide open area, and that could be very troublesome. At least in a theater, you have things you can get behind. You could take different exits. You know, you could crawl your way out. You have maybe some darkness that'll protect you. I would prefer a theater than an open area.
Oh, I see. All right. My dear audiences, thank you very much for watching. Today, in the week of the Las Vegas shooting, we want to make sure that we learn from the past experiences, learn positive lessons. With me is my good friend, Joe Gardner, a former Santa Monica PD officer for 28 glorious years, and also he is the president of the LA County Probation Committee. We thank him for his knowledge. We thank him for sharing his knowledge. So, well, there would be some more to it, and we probably want to see you next time on the same issue. Stay with us, please.